Hello and welcome to Cricket Unadulterated, a weekly cricket podcast. I'm Abhishek Ambulkar, and again I've been joined by Etisham and Manjeet.
Hi Abhishek, I'm really excited to be a part of the third episode of Cricket Unadulterated.
Hello Abhishek, glad to be a part of the third episode as well. Hello everyone.
There are some venues in the world where not just us, but every cricket fan would love to visit one day. Witness the action unfolding in front of us. Not just on TV sets, but actually going there on the ground and witnessing action. And the cricket grounds, which have been iconic, have produced historic matches and moments. So, how about starting this discussion with a venue from where it all started, guys? MCG.
Right, Abhishek, and let us go to our first venue, which is the iconic Melbourne Cricket Ground. It's that's the place where the first ever Test match and the first ever One Day International was played, both between Australia and England. No doubt, it's one of the best cricket venues in the world with a massive sitting capacity, and it's completely surrounded with its stands. There is no gap in between, so it's like almost a huge bowl, you can say. So, as we all know, Melbourne Cricket Ground is one of the largest cricket stadia in the world. In fact, when I was a participant in Bonvita Quiz Contest in 2006, one of the questions that Derek O'Brien had asked us was, which is the largest cricket stadium in Australia? And back then, it was unfortunate of me to not know the correct answer. Of course, it was Melbourne.
And talking about Melbourne, not many of our listeners would know that the 1956 Summer Olympics was also conducted in this very stadium on this very ground. So it has a capacity of over 1 lakh seats, and the famous Boxing Day Test match, which begins on 26th of December, is conducted every year in Australia, in Melbourne, and it is one of the most celebrated days of sporting event in Australia, and it is conducted in MCG. So it is one of the most famous grounds in Australia as well as in the world.
Famous journalist Greg Baum, he went on to describe it as a shrine, citadel, a landmark, as if a part of Melbourne culture and history.
Yes.
Right, and I think it's a dream of every Australian cricketer to wear the baggy green at least once during his or her career, but not just wearing the baggy green, but playing in a Boxing Day Test match at Melbourne. So that is another dream that every Australian cricketer might be dreaming of.
That is correct. So talking about Australian grounds, we can also talk about Adelaide Oval. Not many of our listeners would know, but Adelaide Oval is considered to be a place where the birth of Barmy Army took place in 1911. The scoreboard, which is there in Adelaide, is there since 1911, and it is one of the oldest scoreboards that exist in cricket today.
Etisham, when you mentioned Adelaide Oval, it immediately brings a picture to my mind of a ground with a massive boundary. Then you have grass banks along the scoreboard, and then there is a beautiful church in the background. So, of course, as we know, Adelaide is called the city of churches. So, again, Adelaide venue is another beautiful venue to play cricket at.
Right, and let's move on to Brisbane Cricket Ground, also known as the Gabba. And it also has an interesting history and why it is called Gabba. So, Etisham, would you like to throw some light on the Gabba?
Yes, in fact, talking about Gabba, it is traditionally the first venue of an Ashes series that is hosted by Aussies. It has a long reputation of being a nasty ground to play in. England have won only 2 matches there since 1945, and only 7 Englishmen have passed the 100-run barrier on that very stadium. So yes, it is one of the most, you can call it a fortress for Australians, and they play really well on that ground.
And I think it has been the longest, not the longest, the second longest winning streak for any team in Test cricket at any venue. And so Australia have gone without losing any Test match for 30 plus Test matches now. And in fact, talking about the winning streaks, I think it belongs to Pakistan at the National Cricket Stadium, Karachi. So they have won, I think, more than 33, 34 Test matches at that stadium.
And in fact, another interesting trivia is that this year Tim Payne and Australian Cricket Board is pointing towards the Indians so that they can play a day-night test match in Brisbane as the opener of the series that is going to be held in Australia later this year.
I think
Well, that would be an absolute treat to watch.
yes, and in fact, I remember that in the last tour, when India toured Australia, I think Brisbane was one of the venues which was missing due to that rotation policy. So it would be an absolute delight for the spectators to witness the match there. India versus Australia, huge crowds, and it would be absolutely a spectacle for any spectators to watch, not only on the grounds but also at sitting at their homes on TV sets.
Yes, absolutely. And talking about stadiums, we can also discuss about the newly constructed Optus Stadium that is also known as the Perth Stadium in Perth, which was completed late in 2017 and officially opened in early January 2018 with an enhanced seating capacity. I think it is the third largest stadium in Australia currently. And being Perth, the pitch is still reputed to be fast.
But I think I'm not sure if that will be a very pacey and bouncy track like the old Waka wicket.
Yes, because in the new stadium they are using a drop-in pitch, whereas the old Waka Stadium in Perth, it had the original surface with a big crack on it that was very famous. So yes, the pace is not expected to be the same, but yes, it is still regarded as one of the fastest pitches in the world right now.
So another iconic venue in Australia is the famous Sydney Cricket Ground. It's Sachin's personal favorite venue to play at. And for those who don't know, Brian Lara's innings of 277 came at Sydney. So that's the ground he named his daughter after. Speaking of iconic venues in Australia, I would like to draw your attention towards the Docklands Cricket Ground. One of the only few covered cricket grounds that I've seen. And in fact, there was a match that took place there. And there was a rule that if the ball hits the roof, it would be a dead ball. You won't score any runs or you can't take a wicket. And that actually happened. So we all know about the spider cam rule, right? So if the ball hits the spider cam, then the ball is dead immediately. But then you have a cricket ground which has hosted an international game, which has a canopy over it. And if the ball hits the canopy, then the ball becomes dead immediately. So that's one of the unusual grounds you can see.
Okay, so we discussed about iconic cricket venues in Australia. Now let's move to their trans-Tasman rivals, New Zealand. And talking about New Zealand, there's a famous ground in Auckland, Eden Park. Also very famous for having very short boundaries. You guys want to talk about it?
Yes, in fact, just before the 2015 World Cup final, Matthew Hayden had commented that New Zealand have played all their league matches plus knockout games in New Zealand until that point of time. So he actually commented that New Zealand would be having difficulty in playing at MCG, where the final was supposed to take place. And nevertheless, that did play a role. In fact, as we all know, Australia went on to win the final.
It also hosted the first semi-final between New Zealand and South Africa in 2015 World Cup. And who can forget Dale Steyn on the ground and Grant Elliott, he hit a 6 to Dale Steyn. So that was, I think that was a picture and photograph which will stay for decades. Yes, and young Inzamam ul Haq in 1992 World Cup, he just smashed the bowlers, New Zealand bowlers, when he made 60 runs off just 37 odd deliveries. And in 1992, that was quite 10 innings by Inzamam.
So guys, we have talked about the cricket grounds that are iconic in New Zealand. We also talked about Eden Park. Let us also talk about a ground that is 11,000 kilometers away from Eden Park, also called as Eden Gardens, that is in Kolkata. And everyone knows how iconic the ground it is. You guys want to talk about it?
So yes, so it has been named after Eden Gardens, which incidentally is one of the oldest parks in Kolkata, and it was named after Eden sisters of Lord Auckland, and he was the then Governor General of India.
And as we all know, this ground has been witness to some historic moments in the cricketing world. In the 1987 World Cup, you had Mike Gatting trying that reverse sweep shot, and then of course we all know about the infamous 1996 World Cup semi-final between India and Sri Lanka. And it still hurts to recall all those events because India were cruising at one stage of their chase. We were chasing a target of about 250 or something, and then just when Sachin Tendulkar was dismissed, the Indian batting just collapsed like never before. And then there was some rioting and arsony. And then ultimately, the match referee Clive Lloyd handed over the match to Sri Lanka. That's a part of some painful memories associated with the Eden Gardens. But then 5 years later, you had the historic Test match between India and Australia, which only the third time in history it had happened that a team following on ultimately went on to win the match. And then who can forget the 2016 World Cup T20 World Cup final between England and West Indies when Carlos Brathwaite just smashed Ben Stokes for 4 consecutive sixes and unbelievably went on to lift the trophy for his team.
Right. So going back to 1987 World Cup final, I think it was the first final which took place outside England. The first 3 finals took place at Lord's.
And also India were defending champions during that tournament. So that made Eden Gardens all the more special.
Right.
So yes, Eden Gardens, as we all know, is an iconic cricket stadium in India. There's another replica of an iconic cricket stadium that's there in London. The stadium in Rajkot, Saurashtra Cricket Association Stadium. It is more like a replica of Lord's Cricket Stadium. And anyway, it is situated in Rajkot with a capacity of 28,000 seats. The media center in the middle is the main attraction for spectators. And it is the exact replica, if not the same, but it is very much close to what it is there in Lord's.
I think it would have been even better had they constructed the pavilion similar to the one at Lord's in the old British architecture. And of course, who can forget the visuals of Sourav Ganguly taking off his T-shirt and waving it after winning the 2002 NatWest Trophy.
Yes, and talking about winning trophies, it was the stadium for the final of Ranji Trophy this year. Saurashtra went on to win their first Ranji Trophy title. So yes, it has become an iconic stadium for domestic players, at least for now. So guys, there's another stadium in India covered all around by mountains. It is one of the highest elevated cricket stadiums in the world. I'm talking about Dharamshala, which is there in HPCA, controlled by HPCA. Beautiful mountains, serene weather, glee of colors are the factors which make this an outstanding stadium. Your thoughts on it?
So, I think you were very unfortunate to miss out the live action at Dharamshala because you were about to visit Dharamshala and the match got called off, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And well, Dharamshala is a test venue now, so it would be delightful to watch more and more test matches being played at this venue in the future.
Yes, talking about an iconic match which was held here in Dharamshala back in 2010 when Mahendra Singh Dhoni was seen first time in an aggressive mood after winning the match against Kings 11 Punjab, taking his team into the semi-finals. So yes, it has been a witness to some iconic moments, that being a special one.
I remember when during that particular innings when Dhoni hit one out of the ground, I remember Danny Morrison saying, "Taxi, where are you?"
Yes, that was a special moment indeed. Yes, so as we've talked about HPCA Dharamshala now, we can move on to the venue which conducted or held the 2011 Cricket World Cup final, Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. It is one of the most famous grounds globally, and being a host to World Cup final always counts.
Right, and it's right next to the Marine Drive or Queen's Necklace as you call it. So not just the stadium is good architecture-wise, but if you look at a bird's eye view, again it's a beautiful treat to see because you have the promenade, then you have the famous Marine Drive, and right next to it is the Wankhede Stadium, and even beyond that, if you go, you can see railway tracks that lead to the Churchgate railway station.
Much before Wankhede Stadium, I think there's one more stadium in Mumbai, Brabourne Stadium, and I think we can talk about it as well because
Right.
yeah.
Right. And Wankhede Stadium is managed by the Mumbai Cricket Association, while Brabourne Stadium belongs to Cricket Club of India, or CCI as you call it. Actually, if you go to these stadia, they are situated within walking distance of each other, just half a kilometer away.
Yes, and not many of the listeners would know that Brabourne Stadium was also a host to Women's World Cup final. It was a trivia that was released recently by one of the cricket pages online on social media. So yes, it is also a famous ground that is there in Mumbai. There's another ground which is named as D.Y. Patil Stadium that is there in Mumbai. You guys want to talk about it?
Yes, and when Pune Warriors India made their debut, the stadium at Gahunze in Pune, the MCA cricket ground, was not yet complete. So D.Y. Patil Stadium in Navi Mumbai served as the home ground for Pune Warriors India in the first season.
Yes, so yes, guys, Mumbai has some iconic cricket grounds in the city itself. Talking about more iconic cricket grounds, there's M. Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru as well. Not many of our listeners would know this, but Sunil Gavaskar played his last innings against Pakistan on this ground, and now it is home to RCB in the IPL and home to big sixes previously by Chris Gayle and now by AB de Villiers and Virat Kohli.
Right, and the Karnataka State Cricket Association has paid tribute to Rahul Dravid in a very unique way. They have literally constructed a wall just at the entrance, and it bears all the records in tests and one-day internationals that were created by Rahul Dravid. So if you happen to visit the stadium, make sure you don't miss the wall, which pays tribute to the wall himself.
And moving on and continuing our south journey, I think let's talk about M.A. Chidambaram Stadium, or popularly known as Chepauk Stadium.
So Abhishek, there is one unique feature about this ground which I don't think any other ground must be having it. So there is a railway station right next to it. It's a station for suburban trains, and there is a particular position in that railway station where you can actually peep through a gap, and you can actually watch the on-field action from the railway station without even entering the ground. So this is something quite unique about the M.A. Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai.
And Chepauk also has a unique distinction of hosting the first ever Ranji Trophy match in 1936, and also the Indian cricket team's first ever Test victory in 1952 against England came at Chepauk.
Yes, and also Chepauk is currently the home to one of the most successful IPL teams in India. So we have discussed about Chepauk now. Let's move further down south. I would like to talk about the Wayanad Cricket Stadium that is there in Kerala. It is the first ever cricket stadium that was developed by Kerala Cricket Academy. The drainage system is one of the best for the stadium and was constructed scientifically. But what is more famous about the stadium is, I think, its picturesque view, similar to that of Dharamshala.
It hasn't hosted any international games so far, but then there have been matches where South Africa A, I guess, or New Zealand A, the touring teams, they have actually played at this ground, and it's I think it's another Dharamshala that we may have in the future. It's one of the most good-looking stadiums and a wonderful place to play cricket.
And I still regret not going to Wayanad during our Kerala tour. Atisham?
Yes, I regret as much as you are regretting right now. Yes, that was a moment in which we could have cashed in and visited the stadium. So yes, so guys, I think we have discussed most of the iconic stadiums that are there in India. I think we can move to our neighbor Pakistan and discuss about a few iconic cricket stadiums there.
Right. So I would like to begin with the famous Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore. It's uniquely named after the Libyan dictator Muammar al-Gaddafi. You won't expect a stadium to be named after him, but then that's another thing to talk about. And it has been witness to some unique moments in cricketing history, right?
Yes. The most unique being the 1996 Cricket World Cup final, in which Sri Lanka were the winners for the first time of a Cricket World Cup. And yes, it was an iconic moment.
And unfortunately, Lahore was the place where the Sri Lankan cricket team was attacked in 2009, which led to the suspension of international cricket in Pakistan for almost a decade.
Also, we should talk about the National Stadium in Karachi. It is one of the biggest stadiums that is there in Pakistan, and the winning streak of Pakistan there in Test matches is one to talk about.
Right, and it's the very same place where Irfan Pathan took his famous hat-trick in Test match cricket, becoming only the second Indian after Harbhajan Singh to take a Test hat-trick.
And this is also the venue where Sachin Tendulkar and Waqar Younis played their first Test match.
So, guys, we have talked about great iconic stadiums in Pakistan. Now, let us move on to another neighbor of India in cricketing terms, that is Sri Lanka, which has some great iconic cricket grounds there as well. You guys want to talk about it?
Yes, Adasham. I would like to start with the Galle International Stadium in Galle, of course. And as we all know, it's located inside a fort, actually. Which, the site used to be a fort. Just like Firoz Shah Kotla in Delhi used to be a fort, which was later turned into a cricket ground. So we have a similar phenomenon here in Galle. So it's encircled by the walls of the fort. And right next to it is the sea. And in one of the tragedies that the ground has witnessed during the 2004 tsunami, the ground was flooded by ocean water, and the pitch and the outfield and the stands were all damaged. But then thankfully the ground was renovated, and it still continues to host international games.
Yes, and talking about Galle, I remember the series in 2008 in which Virendra Sehwag carried his bat, scoring 201 runs. So yes, it is home to a lot of memories for Indian fans as well.
And speaking of subcontinent venues, who can forget the fact that this is the stadiums which witnessed the legendary Muthiah Muralidharan taking his 800th wicket. He needed 8 wickets before the start of the match at Galle Stadium, and he went on to pick those 8 wickets, and the 8th wicket, the 8th casualty was Pragyan Ojha.
Right. So he was caught at slip, and Murli was almost denied of his 800th wicket when there was a run-out attempt when India were 9 down. So everyone's heart was in their mouth. So because if the run-out had been successful, Murli would have been left stranded on 799 wickets and not reached that 800 wicket mark. So fortunately, and I think that was perhaps one of the only few occasions when an Indian wicket was celebrated, right?
Yes.
Of course, Murli taking his 800th Test wicket, which still remains an unbeaten record. So this is unusual for Indians to celebrate an Indian getting dismissed. But then, with out of all respect for Murli, we actually celebrated that dismissal. There is another ground in Sri Lanka, which is, of course, a good place to play cricket, but also which is catchy to the eyes. So I would like to draw your attention to the Dambula International Stadium in Dambula. And this is where Virat Kohli made his ODI debut back in 2008. And just like the Dharamshala Stadium, the HPCL Stadium in Dharamshala, it's situated within a mountain range, and it's lots of greenery to be seen around the ground. And it's one of the most beautiful stadiums in Sri Lanka.
Yes, Manjeet, that is an excellent trivia. Virat Kohli made his debut there back in 2008. Also in Sri Lanka, there's the city Colombo, and it is the only city in the world to have 4 venues which have conducted Test matches. To name the 4, we have Colombo Cricket Club Ground, which is there in Sri Lanka. The P. Sara Oval, which is the most famous of those cricket grounds. Then there's R. Premadasa Stadium as well, and there's Sinhalese Sports Club Ground, which is there in Colombo. So yes, it is the only city to have 4 Test playing venues. Talking about Sri Lanka, there's also a venue which is called as Palekele International Cricket Stadium, and it is also known as Muthiah Muralidharan International Cricket Stadium. Not many of our listeners would know that. And it is there in Kandy, another picturesque venue. You guys want to talk about it?
Right. So It is one of the few cricketing venues to be named after a legendary cricketer. So we have Sir Vivian Richards International Stadium in Antigua. Then we have Darren Sammy International Stadium. And here in Sri Lanka, we have a stadium named after the legendary Muthaiya Muralidharan.
Manjeet, you talked about cricket stadiums being named after legends, and you mentioned two of them in West Indies. So let us discuss the iconic cricket venues in West Indies, starting with Sir Darren Sammy Cricket Stadium that is there in St. Lucia, which was previously also known as Gros Islet.
That's right, Etesham. And this is the place where the first T20 international century was scored by an Indian. Suresh Raina achieved his feat against South Africa during the 2010 T20 World Cup.
Yes. Also, West Indies has been iconic in terms of world records. For example, the 418 run chase that was made by West Indies back in 2004 and 2003 season. You talk about England winning its first ICC trophy that was also in West Indies in 2010 in the same T20 World Cup you talked about. And then we have Australia and Ricky Ponting retaining the World Cup in 2007. So yes, these iconic matches have been witnessed by iconic venues in West Indies. So we can talk about the other venues as well.
I would like to mention a cricket ground that is iconic in a different way. If you have read Sunny Days, the autobiography of Sunil Gavaskar, he has mentioned Sabina Park in Kingston, which is in Jamaica, and it has one of the roughest crowds in cricketing terms, because he has mentioned in his book that the crowd they sit on the treetops and they're in huge numbers, and they hurl violent instructions at the players like knock his head off, man, or kill him, man.
Yes, Manjeet, you talked about hostile cricket venues. There's another cricket venue known as St. John's Cricket Stadium in Antigua. Apart from being hostile, it is also one of the venues which saw world record run chase back in 2003, as I already mentioned before. Ram Naresh Sarwan and Shivnaren Chandrabal scripted a brilliant run chase for West Indies, and West Indies managed to win the game by 3 wickets and chase down a world record of 418 runs.
Right, Adesham. And there is one thing common about most of the grounds in West Indies. Well, they are set in picturesque locations. So they're either encircled by lush green forests or they are right next to the ocean. So there is this thing about playing in the Caribbean, that there is a lot of scenery around you when you play cricket.
Oh, yes, Manjeet, you are absolutely right. Talking about scenery, who can move past Cape Town in South Africa, which is also iconic cricket stadium, and there are many other iconic cricket stadiums in South Africa. So I think we should also talk about those cricket stadiums that are there in South Africa, be it Johannesburg, Wanderers, Cape Town, or Durban.
Right, and speaking of Cape Town, there is this mountain peak which is called Devil's Peak, and it overlooks the Newlands cricket ground. So it's always there when you play cricket at Newland.
And yes, recently Jimmy Anderson in an interview told the reporters that Cape Town is one of the top 5 cricket grounds that he loves to play his cricket at.
Right, and Cape Town has witnessed the fastest delivery bowled in an ODI. That was by Shoaib Akhtar during the 2003 World Cup. He bowled a maiden over to Nick Knight, and one of the deliveries was clocked at 161.3 kilometers per hour. We discussed this point in our previous episode, and I would like to repeat it here as well, because it's a world record, of course, and this delivery was bowled at Newlands in Cape Town. So it has witnessed the fastest ever delivery in an international game.
Yes. And talking about fast, I would like to point a fast innings that was played by Yuvraj Singh in 2007 Cricket World Cup, T20 World Cup in Durban. He hit 6 sixes of Stuart Broad in Durban and scored a 50 of 12 balls, a record which is still not matched in T20 Cricket Internationals.
Right, and he didn't stop there, and in fact in the semi-final against Australia at the very same venue, he scored a quick fire 70 of just 30 deliveries, which ultimately helped India post about 190 odd on the scoreboard. And ultimately, India went on to win the match and booked their seat in the final.
Yes, Manjeet, and India went on to play the final against Pakistan in 2007 after winning in Durban. In Johannesburg Wanderers, it is also one of the most iconic cricket grounds in the world. Also considered as the second highest elevated cricket stadium after Dharamshala. And also there are various other facts about the stadium. You want to talk about it?
Oh yes, certainly. It's also called the Bull Ring, first of all. The Wanderers ground. It's also known as Bull Ring. And then, first of all, as you mentioned, India played against Pakistan in the 2007 T20 World Cup final, which of course India went on to win. And 4 years previously, it had also hosted the 2003 World Cup final as well, when again India was playing in the final, but this time ended up on the losing cause. Australia went on to win by 125 runs. Ricky Ponting scored a fantastic 140 during that match. And another spectacular match that was held at Johannesburg was the match between Australia and South Africa, when Australia posted a record 434 in their first innings. But unfortunately for Australia, that record didn't last long because South Africa successfully chased down that total, with Herschel Gibbs scoring 175 in that match. So Johannesburg has witnessed some high action matches so far.
Yes, it is also considered as one of the greatest ODIs that was ever held, that 438 run chase by South Africa. Also, I would like to talk about a great test match that was held in South Africa, but that was in Cape Town. That was in 2011, November, Australia touring South Africa. It was the first test, and Australia were down 29 for 9. It could have been a world record of a lowest total, but Nathan Lyon stitched the partnership and Australia were finally all out for 47.
Oh, right. And that was one of the lowest scores, not the lowest, but one of the lowest scores in Test cricket history.
I think in the same test match on November 11, 2011, there was an interesting thing that happened on that venue. You want to talk about it?
Right. We all remember the legendary umpire, David Shepherd, and it was one of his superstitions that whenever the scoreboard read Nelson, which is a score of 111, as a superstition, he used to raise one of his legs. Not sure if that's a superstition or whatever must have been his belief at that time. But then, of course, this was something which he did on a regular basis whenever the batting side reached 111. So would you believe, Aitesham, coincidentally, at the stroke of 11, so 11 hours and 11 minutes on the day of 11th November 2011, Australia needed exactly 111 runs to win. So can you think of a better coincidence than this? And the crowd at Cape Town, when the score reached Nelson, they all stood on one leg as a mark of respect for David Shepherd.
Aitesham, I would like to add one more point here. Speaking of Wanderers, I think A.B. de Villiers played at Blitzkrieg at Wanderers, where he scored the fastest ODI century, just 31 balls. And incidentally, in the same match, when he notched up his 50, it was a quick fire against 16 ball 50. So the fastest century record in ODIs was broken, and it was previously held by Corey Anderson, I think.
Yes, Abhishek, and I remember that it was a pink day one-day match held in Johannesburg. So Johannesburg is also famous for conducting these awareness cricket games. I think it is about breast cancer awareness that a pink day ODI is held in Johannesburg. Also, SCG is also famous for conducting a pink day test match. So yes, it is a very good initiative on behalf of both the cricket stadiums.
Yes, and as we know, Glenn McGrath lost his wife to breast cancer. So he's very much into awareness campaigns and everything. So he takes personal interest in spreading awareness against breast cancer. So I would like to take you guys to the United Arab Emirates, which has 3 international cricket venues: Sharjah, Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So it's surprising to know that of all the cricket grounds in the world that have hosted international matches, Sharjah has hosted the maximum number of one-day internationals. Because Sharjah has played host to a number of one-day internationals, it's no surprise that some of the greatest innings have been played at this particular venue. So, of course, in the 1998 Coca-Cola Cup, Sachin Tendulkar played his Desert Storm innings. There was a literal desert storm that particular day, and Sachin Tendulkar just hammered the Australians all over the park. And that was one of the most famous innings. And it was Sachin Tendulkar's 25th birthday that day. Despite this brilliant knock, India went on to lose the game. So this turned out to be one of Sachin's greatest innings in the losing cause. So after I think the 175-run knock against Australia at Hyderabad in 2009, that was one heartbreaking moment. And this again was a similar incident when Sachin's century went in vain. So another heartbreaking moment that took place at Sharjah and which still hurts Indian cricket fans is when Javed Miandad hit a six off Chetan Sharma when Pakistan needed a six to win the match. And this particular moment, so in fact it's unfair for Chetan Sharma. He is the first Indian bowler to take an ODI hat-trick, which was against New Zealand at Nagpur during the 1987 World Cup. But he's known for this another incident that involved him. And it's actually unfair of us to remember Chetan Sharma for this reason. But then again, it was destiny's will. So guys, there is another trivia that I would like to share, which is related to this particular incident. Whenever the Indian cricket team flies with Air India, they are generally spared the additional baggage charge. But because there was so much discontent among the Indian fans after this particular incident that Chetan Sharma actually had to pay additional baggage charges for Air India.
So that is an interesting trivia. And yes, Sharjah has been famous for iconic cricket matches that it has conducted over the years, conducting the highest number of ODIs till date. And talking about iconic cricket stadiums in the Middle East, there's another stadium, Dubai International Cricket Stadium. It is not so much famous for the matches that it has conducted, but for the setup of the stadium. It is the only stadium, I guess, which does not have floodlights, but it is properly lit in the night by a ring of fire. That is multiple LED lights covered all throughout the ground at the outer edges of the covering that it has. So it is famously called as Ring of Fire.
Okay, so guys, we have covered almost every part of the globe. Now let's head over to the home of cricket and let's get started with Lords, the most iconic stadium. So Atesham, I remember when you started your Twitter journey and you made your account, the home of cricket started following you. So that was quite a surprising thing.
Yes, Abhishek, you are absolutely right. It was back in 2010. I think the account was also new to Twitter. That's why it probably would have followed me. But yes, that was a good feeling for me. Lord's Cricket Ground following you is always a great feeling.
Guys, speaking of Twitter accounts, if you recall the famous Weatherveen at Lord's Cricket Ground, it's a bearded man who is preparing a wicket with stumps and bails. It's called Old Father Time, and that particular Weatherveen has its own Twitter account.
Okay, so Lords is the home of the MCC Museum as well, and it is the oldest sports museum in the world, and it has the world's most decorated memorabilia, and including the Ashes urn. So MCC has been collecting all the cricket-related memorabilia since I think later part of 19th century. So it has been on display. All the famous cricketers' kits are also there. So still in my bucket list. Probably would love to visit that museum one day.
Yes, and also the honors board in Lords. It is one of the most famous honors board. It is aspiration of every visiting team, every visiting player to be on that honors board. I remember in 2010, Tamim Iqbal scoring a century against England. I think he was the first Bangladeshi to do so.
and the celebration that he made was to get my name on the honors board. So yes, it is one of the most precious honors boards in the world that is there in Lords.
Speaking of honors board, Etisham, I think I still remember the spell of Ishant Sharma at Lords in 2014 when India won the test match at Lords after almost a gap of 3 decades. So that was quite a huge victory for the Indians. Even though Indians lost that test series again in England, but that was a huge occasion because to see an Indian bowler bowling and bouncing out the England batsmen on their own soil, that was a brilliant display of fast bowling.
Yes, Abhishek, and I think Lords is also famous for one of its features of the turf that is there, the slope, which is very much famous. The swing bowlers get a particular type of movement that is only witnessed at Lords in England. So yes, the slope is also a factor that makes Lords an iconic venue.
And also in 1930, I was just reading this statistics some time back, and in 1930, Sir Donald Bradman made 254 at the same ground, and it helped his team to notch up 729 runs. So this still remains the record for most number of runs scored at Lords. So like most of the host countries nowadays, it's very difficult for a touring side to go and win a test series in England. And Ireland, just taking baby steps in international cricket, international test cricket, almost managed to do the impossible in their third test match itself at Lords when they shot out England in the first innings for the score of just 85. And they had a very good chance of winning the test match because they were chasing not a huge target, but 182. But, so that was quite a heartbreaking stuff for them, but it was a brilliant exhibition of swing bowling, which turned the tide for England, where Chris Woakes picked up 6 wickets in the second innings. And as a result, I'm not sure if Ireland's 38 is the lowest total in Test cricket. So that
Yes.
was quite a remarkable victory for England, who came back into the Test match after being on the tenterhooks for most part of the Test match.
Yes, and talking about visiting teams at Lords, I think Australia has a great record as compared to other visiting teams. They have always done well in Ashes Test matches in Lords. Also, talking about Test match venues in London itself, there's another venue, we call it as Kia Oval. It is famous for a particular structure that is besides the ground. It is visible from the pitch as well, and also it has held some great matches throughout last couple of decades. So I think we can talk about that venue as well.
So when we were covering the grounds in South Africa, we talked about Yuvraj Singh's 6 sixes against England during the 2007 World Cup. But then there is a backstory to this incident at the Oval when Yuvraj Singh was bowling to Dimitri Mascarenhas, and that's when the latter hit him for 5 consecutive sixes. So that is something that must have stung Yuvraj. And then
Yes,
he
I remember
he
the
paid.
match, Manjit, that we are talking about here. Robin Uthappa was there with tail ender, and India needed 10 runs of the 4 balls that were remaining in the same match, and India managed to win the match. It is still considered as one of the greatest victories while chasing for India.
I have another piece of information regarding the Oval. So if you go back to the days when World War II was in full swing, the Oval was used as a prisoner of war camp. This is a side information that I wish to share with you all. So now let's head on to another venue in England, that is Bristol. It's called the County Ground in Bristol. And as we all know, during the 1999 World Cup, Sachin Tendulkar lost his father. So he had to come back to Mumbai to perform the last rites. Then he took a flight back to England to continue in the World Cup. And upon his arrival, he scored a brilliant century against Kenya at the same ground, Bristol. As a matter of fact, Sachin Tendulkar could have had 2 centuries against his name at Bristol, but then that was not to be because Sachin was at the receiving end of an umpiring error in 2007 when he was on 99, and there was a caught behind appeal against Sachin, which was turned in the favor of the bowling side by the umpire. Actually, Sachin Tendulkar had not edged the ball. It brushed off his shoulder onto the wicketkeeper's gloves. But again, Sachin was once again dismissed in the nervous 90s for the umpteenth time. If not for that umpiring error, Sachin Tendulkar could have had 2 centuries against his name at the county ground in Bristol.
Talking about centuries made by Sachin Tendulkar, how can we miss the iconic cricket ground of Old Trafford in Manchester, in England? It was the venue where Sachin Tendulkar in 1990 scored his first Test 100, and that was scored in the 4th innings, which is a commendable feat. Talking more about Old Trafford, it is the second oldest Test venue for England after the Oval, and also Old Trafford hosted the first Ashes Test in England in July 1884. So yes, it is also one of the most iconic cricket grounds in England. And Old Trafford, as you all know, it is a city that connects cricket with football like no other city.
And Mike Gatting will fondly remember this venue and the stadium. I think till his last breath, because this is the same stadium where we witnessed the ball of the century by Shane Warne. The ball pitched way outside leg stump, and it went on to hit the top of off stump. So, and it marked the arrival of Shane Warne into the world of cricket, because till that point of time he had a pretty average outing, averaging around 30-31 in Test cricket. But this ball completely changed Shane Warne's career.
Besides these, there are some unusual cricketing venues which have hosted international games. So I have a question for you about one such unusual cricketing venue. So this cricket ground which has hosted a one-day game during a World Cup. It has a tree, a full-grown within the playfield, inside the boundary. And again, this is not just another cricket venue in the backyard. This is a full-fledged one-day international venue. So I want you guys to name it for me. And one small hint that I can give here, that the country where this particular ground is situated, it's not a full member of the ICC, and it does not play Test cricket. So if you know the answer, please put it in the comments.
So Manjit, continuing on with the question streak, I have another question for our audience. And Bapu Nadkarni, the then famous Indian bowler, bowled 21 consecutive maiden overs versus England. And I want the audience to tell us the venue where he bowled 21 consecutive maiden overs. And his figures were 32 overs, 27 maidens, and he just considered 5 runs. Although he didn't pick any wicket, but those were outstanding figures at an economy rate of 0.15 runs per over.
So we have traveled from one part of the hemisphere to another. We started with the Melbourne Cricket Ground in Australia. We gradually moved on to Eden Park in New Zealand, and from Eden Park to Eden Gardens in Kolkata. And then we covered the subcontinent cricket grounds, and we gradually moved on to some great stadiums in West Indies, in South Africa, and then we ended our podcast with the home of cricket, England cricket grounds, which have witnessed some iconic moments in the world of cricket. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We have tried to cover almost all the major cricketing venues which have made a mark and left an indelible mark on the global cricketing fraternity. So we have asked 2 questions at the end of this episode. Try to answer those questions on our social media handles, and till then, stay tuned for yet another exciting episode.